In this video, we're going to create a hearts-based health system like in The Legend of Zelda. Let's begin. Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey, and this channel is all about helping you learn how to make your own games with in-depth tutorials made by a professional indie game developer. So if you find the video helpful, consider subscribing. So this is what we want to create. Over here is my character. It has some simple, nice movement, okay. Then here on the UI, I have the heart's health system. There are some spikes here to cause damage, so if I move towards them, yep, there you go, these trigger just one quadrant of damage, and these trigger a full heart of damage. As you can see, each heart is separated into 4 fragments, so I deal there, there, and there, okay. And down here I have a bunch of heals, so this one will only heal on 1 quadrant. So if I hit it, yep, there you go, only a little bit, and this one only a little bit. These heal a full heart, which includes 4 fragments, so let's go, and yep, the whole thing. And then here I have a mega heal, which will heal all of those. And the hearts are also animated, so every time a full heart is healed, we got a nice bubble animation, so let's see, and yep, there you go, everything goes up, and yep, exactly like that. Alright, so this is our goal, let's get to it. So let's start off by seeing how we're going to set up the visuals. Over here in the project files, I have my textures folder, and in here I have these heart textures. The hearts are split into quarters, and so we have 5 different sprites for empty until completely full. Over here in my hierarchy I have the UI canvas. So inside, let's create a new game object. This will be the heart's health visual. Inside we're going to draw all the hearts dynamically so we can have any number. So that means we're not going to add anything right now. Let's just set the width and height to 0, and now let's make a script. So we make a new C# script. This will be the heart's health visual. Let's drag it onto the game object. And then we're also going to have another script. This will be the heart's health system. We're doing 2 separate scripts to keep our code nice and clean and organized. So we have the logic in one place and all the visuals in another. So first, let's start off by just setting up the visuals. So let's open up the heart's health visual. Now in here, let's make a simple function just to draw a heart. So we make a private image. We're going to call this create heart image. So we're going to create an image and then return it. So we create a game object. We instantiate it with a image component. And we make it a child of this transform. So heart game object, set the parent to this transform, okay? So we are now creating a game object with the image component. Now we need to locate it and add the sprite. So for the sprite, let's go up here, make a new serialized field for our sprite, and will be the heart sprite. So here we go into the heart game object, we get the component of type image in order to set the sprite to our heart sprite. And then we put the game object .transform.local position. Let's put it on vector 3.0. Okay. And finally, we return our image. Okay, so this is our function to create a single heart image. So now let's make a private void start in order to do some testing, and we just call create heart image. Okay, so let's test and see if we do have indeed a heart created in our UI. Before we test, first let's go here and let's drag the full heart sprite. Okay, let's see. And yep, there it is, the full heart sprite. Okay, great. So we can now create our hearts dynamically, and they are spawned as childs of our visual. Okay. So now we want to try making several hearts. So with multiple hearts, we need to place them in different positions. So in this function, let's also receive a vector 2 for the anchored position. And in here, we're going to go the heart game object, get the rect transform, and we set the anchored position to this anchored position. Then we also set the size delta to be correct. So the size delta, and let's put it at 10, 10, okay? So now up here, let's try creating several hearts. So the first one, let's put it on 0, 0, then put them to the side. So in here, let's put them on 20 and 40, okay? So we should be able to see 3 hearts horizontally aligned. Let's see. Yep, there they are, 3 hearts correctly aligned. Okay, great. Now that we have multiple hearts being spawned, we need to display various fragments. So that means first we need references to our sprites. So up here, let's select the heart 0 through 5. And here, let's drag our sprites, so the heart 0, 1, and so on. Okay, now in here, in order to handle our various hearts, we could, for example, store a list of images. However, let's create a proper object to keep our code nice and easy to understand. So let's go down here, and we're going to make a class. This will be our class called heartImage. So this represents a single heart. And then up here on our visual UI, we're going to store a list of heartImage. And let's instantiate it on our void awake. Okay, we now have a nice heartImage list to store all of our hearts. When we create a new heart, let's create a heartImage. So here, let's rename this to heartImage UI, and then we have a heartImage, and we create a new heartImage, and let's pass the heartImage UI. And this is the one that we return, and we also add it to the list. Okay, so when we call this function, we are creating a heartImage. Great. Now let's go here, make the constructor to receive a UI image. Okay, so everything should be working correctly. So here we have a list for all of our heart images, and whenever we call create the heart image, it creates an image on the UI, and then our special class, it adds it to the list, and our special class keeps track of the UI image. So if we run the code, we should be able to see exactly the same as previously. And yep, there it is, our 3 hearts, still exactly the same, okay. Now back in the code, since we made this nice class to hold the heart image, we can now add a nice function so we can set the current heart fragment. So in here, we just make a simple public void set heart fragment. And we receive an int for the fragments. Then in here, we just do a very simple switch on our fragments. So K0, then we set the heart image, set the sprite to be this up here, the heart 0 sprite. So here, as you can see, we have an error since inside this class, we cannot access these films directly. We need to either pass in a reference to this or pass in references to all of our sprites. Let's go the simple way and just pass in a reference to our heart's health visual. So in here, we pass in the heart's health visual and then the image. And just like that, we can now access the reference. Okay, let's apply it to the others. So we now have a nice function to set the fragments on this heart image. And now up here, we can test and make sure the code works. First of all, let's spread them out a bit more. Instead of 20, put 30 and 60. Okay. Then for this one, let's set the heart fragments. This one, let's put it completely full. Then on this one, let's put it with just 1, and this one, let's put it empty. Okay, so let's test. And yep, there it is. This one is full, this one has 1 fragment, and this one is completely empty. So our visuals are correctly displaying all the possible values. So our visual class here is already pretty robust, allowing us to make hearts and set their fragments. So now it's time to work on the logic class. So let's open up the other script. Here we are in the heart's health system. First, we're going to remove mono behavior since we want this to be a simple class. Then let's make a constructor to receive the heart amount. So a public heart's health system, and we're going to receive an int for the heart amount. And then this system also needs to store the fragment state. Now we could just store an integer for the total fragment amount. That would work, but let's do it like we did on the visual and create a specific class to handle each heart. So we go in here, make a public class heart. So this represents a single heart. Here, let's make a constructor, and we're going to receive an int for the fragment. Then we also need a function to get the current fragment amount. Okay, so far so good. Now up here, let's create as many hearts as we need, and we need to store them on a list. So we make a private list. We're going to store our hearts. So this is our heart list. And in here, we initialize the list. Then we do a for, starting off at 0, going until the heart amount. And we simply create a new heart. By default, let's start them off as full, so we pass in 4 fragments. And we add it to the heart list. Okay, so this is our basic hearts health system. And finally, let's just add a public to return a list of hearts. This will be get the heart list. And we simply return the heart list. Alright, so this is the basic setup for our hearts health system. Now we need to test it. So in order to test, let's go back into our visual. In here, let's go into our start. And we're going to create a new hearts health system. So hearts health system. Let's instantiate it with 4 hearts. And then we need to connect the visuals with the logic. So let's make a function that will receive a hearts health system. So in here we make a public set hearts health system. So for testing, we create a new health system with 4 hearts. Then we call this function to set our hearts. We store it in this variable. And now in here, when we set, let's copy this code. Except we're going to do a for. So we cycle through all the hearts. We get the heart list from the hearts health system. Then we cycle through it. So for every heart, we create a new image, and then let's set the fragments based on what we get from the heart. So we ask the heart, give me the fragment amount, and put it as our fragments. Now the last thing is to offset our images. So let's make here a vector2 for the heart anchored position. We start off on 0, 0. Then in here we use this, we create an image, and after we create, let's increase it by the same thing, so by 30 and 0. So every time we add one, we go to the right. Alright, so that should do it. Let's test. And yep, here we are, and as you can see, we do have indeed 4 hearts. Let's make sure everything is updating, so we go in here onto the health system. And here let's damage the last heart. So we go into the heart list, we grab the last one, so the heart list.count -1. And then let's set the fragments. So we need to make that function, but let's set it to 0. So here we make a public void set fragments. We receive an int for our fragments, and we simply set this. Okay, so let's test, and we should be able to see the very last heart with 0 fragments. And yep, there it is. The first 3 are full, and the last one is empty. Okay, great. So we have correctly set up our base visual and base logic class. Now let's add some health functions, like for example damage. So here on the logic class, let's add a new function to damage. So a public void damage. And then we get an int for the damage amount. Now in here we need to cause damage to various hearts. So for example, if we get 8 damage, we should be able to completely empty the first 2 hearts. So let's do a cycle. However, we're going to start from the last heart. So we do for int e, let's start off at the hearts list dot count -1. So we start off at the very last heart. We're going to keep going whilst this is above 0 and I minus. Now here we need to test how much damage this heart can take. So down here we already have a function to get the fragment amount, and let's also make a function to take damage. So a public void damage, I'm going to receive the same damage amount. We're going to see if the damage amount is bigger than the current fragment amount. Then that means this heart has been fully destroyed. So our fragments become 0. And if not, we reduce it. Okay, now we can go up here. Let's test how many fragments are in this heart. So first grab a reference to this current heart, which is on the heart list I. Then we test if the damage amount is bigger then the heart.getFragmentAmount. Then this means this heart will be fully damaged and there won't be damage left over. So we reduce the damage amount by the heart fragment amount. Then we cause damage to the heart based on the heart fragment amount. So we deal as much damage as we can to this heart and then we keep going. And if not, then that means this current heart can handle all of the damage. So we just tell it to take the damage amount and then we break out of the cycle. Alright, so that should do it. So we're going through all of our hearts, starting from the last one. Then we test if the heart can absorb the current damage amount. If he cannot absorb it, then we reduce the damage amount by the amount that he absorbed, and we deal that damage. And if this happens, we keep going into the next heart. And if we reach a heart that can finally absorb the full damage, then that one simply takes the damage that he can absorb, and we break out of the cycle. Okay, so our damage logic should be working. So now all we need is to update the visuals. And in order to keep our code nice and clean and the logic decoupled from the visuals, we're going to use some events. So let's go all the way up here. And first of all, we need to be using system. And we create a new public event handler. And let's call this on damage. So this event will be triggered whenever the health system takes damage. So all we need to do is go down here into our damage function and we fire the event. So if we have subscribers to the event, we fire it sending this and event args.empty. Okay, so that should do it. Now let's go back into the visual. In here, when we set our heart's health system, let's subscribe to the event. So we take the heart's health system dot on damage, subscribe to this event. And when the event happens, let's cycle through all the hearts and essentially refresh them. Okay, so this event is fired when the health system takes damage. So the first thing we do is grab the heart list from the health system. Then we go through the heart image list. We grab the heart image on this index and the heart on the same index. And then we set the heart image, set the heart fragments based on the fragments currently on the heart object. So that should be correctly updating every single heart. Alright, so now it's time to test. So for testing, let's go up here into our start. And let's create some simple testing buttons. So for that, I can go into the CMDebug class. This class is part of the CodeMonkey utilities that you can grab for free from unitycodemonkey.com. So inside there's a nice button UI function which creates a button in the UI, so perfect for our testing. Okay, so we should have a button on the UI, one saying damage 1, one saying damage 4, and all they do when we click on the buttons, it triggers this action. So this one will cause 1 damage and this one 4 damage. Alright, so very simple and perfect for our testing, so let's see. Okay, here we are, and here are the nice 2 buttons, and as you can see, we are currently full, so 4 hearts, all full. Let's deal 1 damage, and this one should lose 1/4, and click. And yep, there you go, it lost 1, click again, and now it's at half, now it's at 1, now it's empty, and now damage, and now that one took damage, and that one took damage. And this one should take away half, so this one should lose 1/4, and I click. Yep, there you go, exactly as intended. Alright, so our damage function is working perfectly fine along with our visuals. So now let's implement healing. So here back in the logic class, let's make a function to heal. So we have our damage and then we have a public void heal. And we're going to receive an int for the heal amount. Now in here, we're going to cycle through the hearts. However, this time we're starting from the first one. Now we need to calculate how many fragments this particular heart is missing. So we can get the current amount. However, in order to figure out how many are missing, we also need a maximum. Since the maximum will always be the same, let's define it as a nice constant. So let's go here, make a public const int for the max fragment amount, and we set it to 4. Okay, so we have a nice constant for that. So down here we can now calculate the missing fragments. So it's our maximum minus the current, so the heart dot get the fragment amount. So if it is full, then we get 4 minus 4 equals 0. So let's go here. We have our damage function. Let's make a public void heal. And here let's make sure our heal amount does not go past the maximum. So if we go past the maximum, then we simply set the fragments to our maximum, okay? And if we did not go past the maximum, then we simply increase the fragments by the heal amount. Okay, so this should be working. Now let's go up here into our logic. So we have the missing fragments on this heart. So we test if the heal amount is bigger than the missing fragments. Then that means we can heal this heart and we still have more left over. So we reduce the heal amount by the missing fragments. Then we go to the heart and we heal the heart with our missing fragments. And then we keep going to heal the next one. And if not, then we simply go into the heart and we heal by the heal amount. And once we do, we break out of the cycle. All right, that should do it. Now in here, we also need another event in order to notify the visuals. So let's go up here. We have the on damage and on healed. Okay. And down here, we just need to trigger our on healed event. And yep, it's that simple. Now we can go back into the visuals. And here, when we set our heart cell system, let's subscribe. So we heart cell system on healed, subscribe to that event. And when that happens, we're going to do the same thing in here. So let's make a function, private void, refresh all hearts. So when we damage and when we heal, we are refreshing all of our hearts. Okay, that is working. Now let's go up here to make 2 more testing buttons to test our healing. And yep, here we are. So we have 2 more buttons. These 2 cause damage and these 2 cause healing. All right, so everything should be working. Let's test. Okay, here we are with our 4 hearts and our 4 buttons. So let's try causing some damage. There you go, 1 damage, 2, and so on. I can damage a full heart. Yep, just like that. Now let's see the heal. If I click on this one, it should heal up this quadrant here. And yep, there it is. And now another one. And now it should start healing this one. And yep, there it is. And heal 4. And yep, it goes the whole thing. Okay, great. So our system is pretty much fully working. Now for a health system, it's also helpful to know if the character is dead. So let's just make a simple function. So here on our logic, let's make a public bool and call it isDead. Now in here, it's extremely simple. We just return if the current heart, so we go into the heart list on index 0, and we check if the fragment amount is 0. If so, then the entire system is indeed dead. So let's go up here, make another nice event. So on dead, and we simply call this event when we take damage. We check if is dead. If so, then we fire the event. Okay, that should do it. So let's test on the visuals. In here, let's subscribe. So the heart cell system on dead. And if we are dead, let's just do a nice pop-up. All right, let's test. Okay, so here we are, and this looks good. And let's cause some damage, and there you go. They're all going down. And one more, and let's see the pop-up. And yep, there you go. The character is dead. Okay, awesome. All right, so now let's polish things up a bit and make the hearts fill up over time instead of being instant. So let's head into the visual script. And in here, let's make a function that is going to run every certain amount of time so we can animate things. So here, make a private void and call this healing animated periodic. Now let's trigger this every certain amount of time. So for that, let's go up here. And on the start, the perfect way is to use the function periodic, which again, part of the CodeMonkey utilities. This is perfect for exactly this scenario, which is where we need to trigger a function every certain amount of time. So we're going to trigger that function, the hearts animated. Let's run it, let's say every 50 milliseconds. And just like that. Okay, so we now have this function being called every 50 milliseconds. Now in here, let's see if we should be healing. So let's cycle through all of the logic hearts. So the same thing we did in here, except we cycle through the heart list. So here, let's test if the logic is different from the heart visual. So we grab this and we test. If the heart image.get fragments is different from the heart.get fragment amount, then that means that the visual is different from our logic. So since we're only doing this on healing, that means we need to increase the heart image. And let's make a function add heart visual fragment. Okay, so let's make these two functions. And on the add, we simply set the heart fragments and increase the fragments +1. And when we do add, we break out of the cycle. So essentially, we're only going to add one heart per each time that this function runs. And finally, we go up here, and when we take damage, we do want that to be reflected instantly. However, when we heal, let's not refresh automatically. So when we heal, the logic will be different from the visuals, which will cause this code to run, and it will do this. All right, so let's test. Okay, here we are with our 4 hearts. Let's cause some damage, and the damage, as you can see, is still instant. And now let's try healing and see if they go up slowly. And click, and yep, there you go, it went up. And yep, it was not instant, it went up, filled up slowly over time. So cause damage, he's dead. Now let's revive him. And yep, there you go, it's great. Okay, awesome. So we got the nice effect that we wanted. Now in here, let's just make our code a little bit more clean and more performant. Instead of doing this cycle through all of our hearts every single frame, let's first test if we should be healing. So we can go up here to make a nice simple boolean. A bool is healing. When we have a heal, let's set it to true. Okay. And in here, we're only going to run this if we are healing. If so, then we run this code. Now we need to know when we should stop healing. So let's define a bool fully healed. We default it to true. And down here, if we do heal something, then that means we were not fully healed, so we set it to false. And after the cycle ends, if we are fully healed, then we set is healing back to false. All right, that should do it. So now this function should no longer waste cycles by going through the list when everything is healed. So here we are, let's cause some damage, and there you go, it's instant. And now let's heal. And yep, there you go, it heals slowly over time, and damage and heal. Okay, awesome. Now we could apply the same thing for taking damage, but it makes more sense if the damage is instant and only the heal is animated. Now one last thing we can have is to have a nice animation when the heart is completely full. So for that, let's go into the editor. Let's create a heart just so we can make our animation. So we need to add an image, drag our heart image. Okay, here's our image. Now let's add the animation component. Now let's add the animation tab. So in here, add tab for the animation. Okay. Now we create a new animation clip. And let's just make a very simple animation of increasing the size and getting it back to normal. So we just add a property on the rect transform, and let's modify the scale. Let's increase it by 20%. And after a while, we go back to 0. Okay, so that's it, a very simple animation. Now let's see how we're going to play this animation through our code. Here on our visual script, let's go here to add a serialized field for our private animation clip. This will be the heart full animation clip. And down here, let's go to the function where we are creating our heart image right here. And let's also create it with a animation component. And here we go into the game object, get component of type animation. And we add a clip for the heart full animation clip. Now on the heart image, let's make a function to play that. So a public void play heart full animation. And here we just play the animation. So let's go here in order to store it. And we just play the heart full animation. Alright, so far so good. Now let's go where we are filling the hearts. And here we are, we add a visual fragment. Then let's also see if the heart image.get fragment amount, if it is the same as the heart's health system.max, then this heart was fully healed. So we go into the heart image and we play the full animation. Okay, that should do it. Let's see our nice effect. Okay, so here we are with our 4 hearts. Let's cause some damage all the way down there. Now let's deal a bunch of healing and yep, there you go, the nice pop-up animation. So again, the system supports any number of hearts, so let's increase it. All we need to do is come here into the heart's health system, which as you can see, we receive a heart amount. So when we construct this here on our start, we're constructing the heart's health system, and instead of 4, let's pass in 10. And let's also add another healing to heal a lot. So we got a massive heal. Let's test. Here we are with 10 hearts. Nice. Let's cause a bunch of damage and all of them are going down. Yep. And now let's heal everything. And yep, goes up, goes up, goes up. And everything looks very nice. If we want, just like the game Legend of Zelda, we can add this on multiple lines. Let's see that. Essentially, the code is here when we set the heart's health system. Right now we have the anchored position. However, let's do this by rows and columns. So here we have an int for the rows, an int for the columns, then the maximum of columns, and the distance between each row and column. And then we calculate the heart anchored position. So essentially the column multiplied by the row column size, and the row the same thing except on the negative, so we can go down. We create the heart image, then we increase the column. If it is more than the column max, then we increase the row and reset the column. So essentially we should be able to have 10 hearts per horizontal line. So let's go up here, and instead of making a health system with 10, let's make it with 20. Let's see. And yep, here we are with 20 hearts and 10 of them per row. So I can cause damage, start off with the lower ones and then on that one, and then let's heal a bunch of them. And yep, there you go, all of them filling up, all of them look nice, and yep, awesome. Okay, so our system is working perfectly. Now, instead of using these buttons, let's use a nice character. Also, since we are creating these dynamically on this heart's health visual, if we want, we can simply push this onto the side in order to look a bit better. So like that, and now let's add our character. So here is my usual character with some very simple movement. Okay. You can check out the several videos I've done on simple character movement. Now let's create some spikes to damage our character. So here, make a new empty game object. This will be the spikes. Let's add a sprite renderer component and drag the spikes sprite. Okay. Let's add a box collider so we can trigger our collisions. Okay. Make this a trigger. Yep. On the player, as you can see, he's also created with a box collider and a rigid body. So now let's make the script to handle these spikes. So a new C# script, just a very simple thing for these spikes. And then here, extremely simple, let's make a private void on trigger enter 2D. So this gets called whenever a collider collides with this collider. So let's first check to see if we collided with the player. So we grab a player reference from the collider.get component of type player. So if player is not null, then we hit the player. And the player has a function called damage knockback. So let's simply push him back. So let's calculate the direction vector. So we have the knockback direction, and let's push him away by a little bit. So let's see how this function works. Here it is, it's quite simple, it just moves the player transform and does a nice flash. So it's in here that we need to damage our heart's health system. Now in order to do that, we need a reference. So just in this case, let's go into the visual class, which is the one that creates it, and let's make it a static variable. So in here we make a public static heart's health system. And when we set our heart's health system, let's also set the static variable as well. Again, I'm just doing this specifically to make this simple test. Obviously, if you are implementing this in a proper game, you would put it in a more appropriate place. Like for example, the player class would be the one responsible for containing the heart's health system. But in this case, just for testing, this is good. So we now have a nice static function. So we can go back into the player. In order to just test, we grab the heart's health visual, then we grab the instance, and we simply trigger some damage. So in here, let's also receive an int for the damage amount, so we can have varying damage amount. And that should be working. So now let's go into the spikes. And here let's make a serialized field for a private int damage amount. And this is the amount that we're going to send in here, okay. Now we can go into the editor. We drag our spikes script, and let's say this one only triggers 1 damage. Then let's have a different spike script. Let's tint it in red. And this one, instead of 1, it will trigger 4 damage. And let's make another one here that will trigger 10 damage. Okay, that should be working. Let's test. Here we are. Here's the player and all of our hearts in here. All of them are full. Now let's hit this one. And yep, there you go. We got a nice knockback and we took 1 damage. And 1 damage every time. Now this one triggers 4 damage. And this one triggers a lot of damage. So just like that, yep, quite a lot of damage. Okay, so finally let's make a heal. So we can just duplicate the spikes, and this will be the heal. Instead of the spike sprite, let's drag the heart sprite. Now let's see our code. So we make a new script. This will be the heart heal. And here we're going to do very much the same thing. So when we collide with the player, we heal him by a certain amount. So let's make this function. So here, let's make a public void heal. We trigger the heal on the heart's health system and we tint it in green. Okay, that should be working. Now here, just drag the heart heal instead of the spikes. And this one, let's heal by 4. Then let's have another one on the side that will only heal 1, and we put this one. Okay, so let's test. Okay, here we are. Let's cause some damage, and there you go. We got some nice damage. And now let's heal everything back up. So we go here, touch the healing, and yep, there you go. Everything went up nice. Everything flashed green, and it went up very well. All right, so we have made a very nice testing scene for our heart's health system. So here's our final testing scene. We have the heart's health system up here exactly like it works in The Legend of Zelda. The hearts are split into 4 fragments, which can be either damaged or healed. So if I go and touch these spikes, I'm going to take 1 damage, and there you go. Yep, took just a quarter. And this one's going to take a full heart. Yep, there you go. Now with the heart's damage, I can go in here into heal. So this one will only heal 1 quarter, and yep, exactly. And this one will heal a full heart. And yep, exactly like that. The heals are nicely animated, so let's cause some more damage. And I go in here and grab this mega heal and look at the hearts. And yep, there you go, they go up very nice and nicely animated. So the whole system works perfectly and looks great. As always, you can download the project files and utilities from unitycodemonkey.com. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel for more Unity tutorials. Post any questions you have in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Alright, see you next time.